What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2023 schedule preview and projected record series. The Oregon State Beavers are up next, a team that had a bit of a surprise year last year, going 9-3. I think there were a lot of us that saw the potential for this team to have a pretty good year, maybe a 7-5, 8-4 year, but 9-3, that was really strong, at least in the regular season. 10-3 if you count the bowl game. What they did is they really took care of business against the bottom teams in the Pac-12, the middle of the pack teams in the Pac-12. They won the games they were supposed to win. Only 1-3 against the top 4 teams in the Pac-12 that they played. We're talking about Utah, USC, and then also Oregon and Washington, which of course they did beat Oregon, but didn't quite get it done against the best, except for Oregon, but took care of business against those other teams. And we'll see what it looks like for 2023. Again, here's the schedule, and they will play all those teams again. They'll play Utah. Actually, they don't play USC this year. Trade USC for UCLA. So they don't play USC this year. Instead, they'll play UCLA, which they did not play last year. So you go through the schedule here. September 2nd, they'll play on the road at San Jose State to open things up. UC Davis on the 9th and San Diego State on the 16th. So they will play their 3 non-conference games right at the beginning of the season. San Jose State, UC Davis, San Diego State, and then they get into Pac-12 play on September 23rd with a road game against Washington State. Washington State, one of those middle of the pack teams in the conference. They'll play Utah on a Friday night on September 29th at home. That'll be big. Usually these weeknight games, when you've got an underdog at home on a Thursday or Friday night, it seems like they win more times than not. So they'll have a great shot there to knock off Utah. Then they go into the month of October on the road at Cal. Follow that up with a home game against UCLA. Then they get their bye week. Their bye week comes before back-to-back road games. On the 28th, they'll play Arizona, Colorado on November 4th. So both of those games on the road, back-to-back road games. Then they're back home for 2 in a row. Stanford on November 11th and Washington on the 18th. Finish things out with a road game at Oregon on November 24th. That will be on that Friday after Thanksgiving. So again, when you look at this schedule overall, no USC. That's, I think, the good news. So you do have to play the other 4 best teams, I would say, in the Pac-12, in Utah, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. But 3 of those 4 games are at home. Utah comes on a Friday night. I think that helps them out. They don't have anything that's real tough as far as like stretches, back-to-back stretches, other than Washington and Oregon there at the end. You do have road games, back-to-back Arizona and Colorado, but those are very winnable games for Oregon State, and they get a bye week before those games. So overall, schedule sets up pretty well for Oregon State. Perhaps they could be a surprise team again and maybe even take that next step. Who knows? Maybe this team could get to the Pac-12 championship. DJ Uiagalelei coming over at quarterback. Is he going to give them enough in the passing game to take that next step offensively? They're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be good on defense. We'll see. So let's get to the projection here. We'll start here with our scale. So if the game stays in the white, those are 50-50 games that could go either way, games where the spread is going to be, I think, less than a touchdown. Under 20, over 80, those are games where I think the spread will be in the 20s, 20-plus points. The orange, 20-29 and 61-70%. Those games are going to be actually 20-29 in the orange, 71-80% in the blue. Those are games where I think the spread will be double digits, 10-19 points, 30-39, 61-70. Those are games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 points, kind of in that range. So we'll start here with, I was kind of back and forth on where to put some of these games, but I'm going to put all of them in the green. I think UC Davis is definitely in the green. San Jose State, San Diego State, not terrible teams out of the Mountain West, so perhaps they should be in the blue, but it really doesn't matter because the blue and green games are counted as wins for this projection. You've got 3 wins there that you can pretty much count on. San Jose State on the road, you never know. San Diego State, a pretty good team out of the Mountain West, so we'll see how competitive those games turn out to be. And the more I think about it, maybe those games should be in the blue. Maybe they're going to be like an 18-point favorite. But like I said, it doesn't really matter. Either way, they're counted as wins for this projection video. So then I think Stanford, I think they'll be in the blue. I think they'll be favored by 14 or so in that one. Stanford's kind of in rebuild mode right now. Plus, it's a home game for Oregon State. I think you put all that together, and yeah, Oregon State's going to be favored by double digits in that one. I think you've got 4 games where they'll be favored by about a touchdown. And again, this schedule sets up really well for them if they can win these games. So Washington State, Cal, Arizona, Colorado, all of these games are on the road, but they're all games that this team can win. They will be favored, I think, in all 4 of these games. They should be the better team. Now, it's tough to win. You know, when you got 4 games like that on the road, it's tough to win them all. And I'm not saying that they're going to, but if they can, I mean, again, you've got 3 of your other 4 games, 3 of your 4 toughest games at home. So if they can take care of business in these games, that's the recipe. And again, that's what they did last year. They took care of business in these types of games. If they can do it again this year and get some big wins at home, you never know about Oregon State. They could be a very real contender in the Pac-12. So these 4 games, again, I think they'll be favored probably by about 6 against Washington State, maybe 8 against Cal, 6 against Arizona, just my guess. Colorado, maybe 7 or 8. Colorado's a tricky one. They're going to be a totally different team this year. Don't know for sure how good they're going to be, but you have to think that they're going to be improved. And with that game on the road, that's why I did put it in the purple. And then that leaves Utah, Washington, and Oregon. I've got those 3 games in the yellow, so I think those are games where Oregon State's going to be about a touchdown underdog. And who knows? I mean, with the Friday night game against Utah, that one could be more like a 50-50 game. Washington at home, maybe that turns into a 50-50 game depending on how good these teams are. But, you know, it's looking at the teams. I do have Utah, Washington, Oregon, and USC kind of in that top tier in the Pac-12. And then Oregon State and UCLA are in that second tier. But that, you know, once we go through the offseason, evaluate these teams more, I could change my mind on that. I could kind of change those rankings. It's still very early, and these are very early projections. And I always say, these are not my predictions. My predictions will come after fall, after spring. And so we're still a long ways away from my predictions. This is just a projection based on how good these teams are expected to be and based on how tough their schedules are. But those are games where I do think Oregon State has a chance to be about a touchdown underdog. UCLA, I think, will be the 50-50 game. That's the one that could go either way. But if they can somehow steal the game against Utah and Washington at home and win the other games that they're supposed to win, take care of UCLA at home, that's going to only leave Oregon. I mean, this is a team that might even should be a dark horse playoff contender. I know in my video where I went through and did some way too early predictions, I didn't have Oregon State as a dark horse in that video, but maybe I'm changing my mind here when I look at this schedule and again how good this team has a chance to be. So UCLA, that final game, that's the 50-50 game. How do we get the projection? We'll count these games in purple as 65%, 35% for the games in yellow, and 50% for the UCLA game. The blues and greens are counted as wins, and we average it all out. We get 8-4. So an 8-4 projection for Oregon State. Not quite as good as they were last year. But, you know, it comes down to, with Utah, Washington, Oregon, UCLA, you know, the odds would say they're probably going to lose 2 or 3 of those games. And then with Washington State, Cal, Arizona, and Colorado, because all these games are on the road, they're all tough. You know, the odds would say they're probably going to lose at least one of those games, even though they will be favored. But if they can win those games, I keep saying, just watch out for this team. If they can get past Utah, pull off an upset there, they could be 6-0 heading into UCLA, and maybe even 10-0 heading into Washington. It's not that crazy with this schedule. So projection that's not quite as good as last year, even though maybe I'm disagreeing with this a little bit, because I think Oregon State could be pretty dangerous. But the projection based on our formula for Oregon State is 8-4 in 2023.